Welcome back to A Game of Fangs and Thrones. My name's Hannah. This is the first Unhaul of 2022. Um, in case you hadn't been able to notice, I don't have a lot of space for books. This is a full-length shelf. This is a repurposed shoe rack, but because of the bed, I can only get to this shelf, which you can't see because of the blankets, this shelf, and obviously the top shelf. I also have a stack of books there, and right in the corner I have a repurposed CD rack which holds mostly my Terry Pratchett books, which were my dad's, but I just can't give them back. And again, I can only get to the top 3 shelves of those with a stack in the corner. So, and I also have some books just out of shot on top of the wardrobe there. So I don't have a lot of space for books. So the goal for 2022 is to have a more curated selection of books I haven't read and books that I have read that are 5-star or will be reread. That's generally the gist of it. So a lot of these books you will see in hauls, wrap-ups, and probably vlogs if I ever get back into those. So you will have seen them, so I'll probably just go through them. Reasons for unhauling, and it'll either be 1, a DNF, 2, I enjoyed it but won't reread, or 3, I didn't enjoy it. And just to preface this, because I know people tend to get passionate about books, which is why we're all here, and that's fine. I apologise in advance if I am unhauling a book that you really love, or a book that you think I should give a second chance to. I don't have the time or the space for second chance books unless I do legitimately want to try that author again. And it'll probably be a different book that I try rather than the same book again. The only exception to that, interestingly enough, was Lord of the Rings. Just bear that one in mind. But I have rambled on for long enough, and there'll probably be a few of these. I have a box, and when this box gets full, it's time to film the unhaul, and I will be taking these to the charity shop pretty much as soon as I film this, actually. So by the time you see this, they'll probably be gone. I'm sorry, I don't have space, but I definitely rambled on for long enough. Let's get on with it. Okay. So the first book was Age of Witches by Louisa. This was cute. It was romantic, slow-paced, tended to focus more on the romance than the magic element, which maybe this was my fault, but I wanted more magic. It follows Annis, a young woman in Gilded Age New York, who finds herself a pawn in the family struggle for supremacy. She'll need to claim her own power to save herself and resist succumbing to the darkness that threatens to overcome them all. There was an element of that, but we followed a different character more, and I can't remember her name because it was a while since I read this one. I think it was Harriet. We tended to follow Harriet more, who was Annis's auntie, estranged aunt, or something like that. It was cute. It was a good, well-written story. It was just very slow and didn't focus on the magic as much as I personally wanted. As a romance, that was great. So I think I gave that one probably about 3-4 stars. I'm not going to be able to give you reasons for all of these, I'm sorry. But then we have Are We All Lemmings and Snowflakes by Holly Bourne. Now this one I did really enjoy. This one falls into the category of enjoy but probably won't reread. And this follows Olive, who is a girl struggling with her own mental health battles. She has a diagnosis but has asked the doctors not to tell her, because she feels that she will be defined by that, and she doesn't want to be defined by one thing. And as someone, we do find out what Olive's diagnosis is later, because she's sent to a camp to try and not cure her, because mental health is a lifelong struggle, I think, speaking from experience. But this was a very good book. Trigger warnings for suicide. It's not. Here we go. It is a work of fiction, but deals with many real issues, including suicidal behaviour, mental health conditions, including depression and mania, and discussion of sexual assault. Now, it is all just discussion, but just be wary of that going in if you are struggling with any of those. Personally, I didn't mind it so much. My own mental health is a lot more stable now. I have depression and anxiety. So from that point of view, I think this is really well done, but Olive doesn't have that diagnosis, so I can't speak for that representation. Does that make sense? I'm trying not to tell you what Olive's diagnosis is, because the way that this is written is very interesting. You are in Olive's head, and as she gets excited about things, and you kind of, when you're reading it, you think, okay, so this is just normal teenage behaviour. She's excited, she's happy, that all those good things, but then once the diagnosis is revealed, you realise that, yes, she's been spiralling for a while. But yeah, I did quite enjoy this one. I just won't reread it, and I think it'd be better off going to someone who is at the same stage that Olive is. She's not quite in denial, but she's struggling. The first DNF of the year, I think. Yeah, I think it was actually. Is Kingdom of Souls by Reena Barron. This I just couldn't get into it. I found our main character a little bit spoilt and self-centered. All she cared about was getting her magic. I think people know about this one, but basically we follow Ara, who is the daughter of a family of powerful witch doctors, but she doesn't have magic of her own. It is possible to trade years from your own life for a taste of power. Cheap trick with a heavy price. Ara doesn't even consider this until children go missing. Now, I think I got to... With DNF, some books I'm not gelling with straight away. I do try to get to at least page 100. So I must have got fairly into this book. And they still hadn't really mentioned the kids going missing at this point, and that is in the synopsis, so it is a big plot point. I just couldn't get into it, unfortunately, which is a shame because I do really like that cover. Then we have YA middle grade, I think. This is The Whippy Witches by Robin Jarvis. I did enjoy this. We follow Ben and Janet, who arrive in the new seaside home. Excuse me, which is Whippy. Whitman soon discovers it's a very extraordinary place, and I have been to Whippy, so I agree. Even in the middle of the day, that has an atmosphere. With mysterious creatures on the shore and a deadly beast prowling in the streets, it becomes clear that Aunt Alice and her friends are also not quite what they seem. I did enjoy this, but the ending went a bit weird. I know middle grade can do that at times because kid logic is different to adult logic, but I just couldn't get behind the end. It just went really weird in a way that I couldn't follow. But it is a good book. So unfortunately this is in the category of enjoyed but won't be rereading. A lot of these you'll find will be in that category. Heartlight by Tim Tilley. This followed Wick, who's always lived in the dark and dreadful. Heartlight's match factory, an orphanage, working for greedy old Marbogie. It isn't entirely explicit, but it gave me Oliver Twist vibes, which was a good thing. He only dreams of escaping until one day a bird drops something impossible and magical at his feet, a tiny baby in an acorn cradle. Midnight chimes, because it always does. Wick is visited by the Hobbs, miniature protectors of the forest. Grateful for the kindness shown to their stolen child, they offer Wick the chance of a lifetime, escape from Hawklights, and begin a new life with them in the wild. So I did like this, and it does have really nice pictures throughout. But I just felt it was maybe a little bit preachy about the environment. It was a really nice story of finding hope and family. But it just felt a bit preachy in terms of the environmental aspects, which to a child probably wouldn't notice. But it did take away from it for me, and it is a pretty book. It's just, I don't think I'm going to reread that one. This is in a category of its own, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But this is Rumesa, a fairy tale by Radia Aziza. Sorry. This is basically a Muslim spin on 3 fairy tales. I'm going to say 3. I think it's... Yeah, we have Rumesa, who is Rapunzel, Cinderella, who is Cinderella, and Sleeping Sarah, who is Sleeping Beauty. Now, I did enjoy these. They are standalones. Each story is a standalone, but it does have Rumesa does interact with the other 2 fairy tale princesses. I'm just not a fan of short story collections, unfortunately. I'm not a fan of short stories, but I did really enjoy this one. I'm just probably not going to reread it, which is a shame because I do like it. I think I need a villain to actually be a villain, basically. Speaking of a book that I have no idea what it's about and doesn't really have a villain, is The Midnight Queen by Sylvia Hunter. I think I gave this 3 stars because I have no idea what happened in it. I'm just going to have to read the back because I've got no recollection of this, but there must have been something when I was reading it, otherwise I would have just DNF'd. Grey Marshall's Britain is a fragmented kingdom of many tongues, many gods, and many magics. But all that concerns Grey right now is returning as soon as possible to his studies and setting right the nightmare that has seen him disgraced and banished to his tutor's home without a trace of his powers. That is when he meets the professor's daughter, although she has no talent of her own and has been forbidden by her father to pursue it. Sophie Calendar longs for a magical education, but she started a bookish rebellion in her father's library long ago. And her meeting with Grey sets off a series of events that will lead them to uncover a conspiracy at the heart of the kingdom and into the legend of the Midnight Queen who vanished without trace years before. I cannot remember anything about this book other than I must have enjoyed it at the time. I think it's just one of those ones that's forgettable. I do have the other 2 just out of shot here. This is my priority list stack thing. I have a video on that. But I do have the other 2 books in that trilogy in there. I will try and read the second one, but I don't know if I'm going to finish that series, but it's on the priority list to give it a try. Then we have... Nope, that's in a category of its own, which needs discussed later. This is a book that I bought for a friend. Unfortunately, I don't speak to that friend anymore, and it is a controversial book lately, so I don't feel comfortable regifting that to anyone, and it is this book. So the least said about that one, the better. I am keeping my own Harry Potter books only because they were a massive part of my childhood. I can't condone, and I don't condone what Rowling has said. My opinion on the whole trans lives and LGBTQIA plus rights is, if people are happy, it's not my place to judge as long as they aren't hurting themselves or anybody else. I have no right to interfere with that. I have no issues with that. And people are people. Let them be who they want to be. Moving on, because she does not need any more screen time than she already has. We have some of the books in the DC Icons collection. These are origin stories of DC characters. Basically, we have Leigh Bardugo's Wonder Woman, Warbringer, and Sarah J. Maas's Catwoman, Soul Stealer. These fall into the category of enjoyed but won't be rereading. I think I'm more Marvel than DC anyway, but they were good. I just don't think I'll be rereading them, as mentioned. Then we have Christy Lefertier's The Beekeeper of Aleppo. I didn't get the emotional connection out of this book that everybody says we should have. It follows Nuri, who's a beekeeper, and Afra, his wife, who was an artist. They live happily in the beautiful Syrian city of Aleppo until the unthinkable happens and they are forced to flee. But what Afra has seen is so terrible she has gone blind, and they must embark on a perilous journey through Turkey and Greece towards an uncertain future in Britain. As Nuri and Afra travel through a broken world, they must confront not only the pain of their own unspeakable loss, but dangers that would overwhelm the bravest of souls. Above all, and perhaps this is the hardest thing they face, they must journey to find each other again. The Observer says it's impossible not to be moved. I wasn't. I can appreciate that it was a heartbreaking story, heartbreaking account of what happened, because I think obviously with subject matter it is going to be based on a lot of different accounts, because I believe the author did work in refugee camps, but it just didn't do it for me, unfortunately. Then we have Dangerous Remedy by Kat Dunn. This is an older one. The reason is because I read it. I think this was before I was DNFing, because I did manage to get to the end, but I just didn't care about any of the characters or the relationships or anything like that. So I gave it to my sister, because it felt like something she would enjoy. She said the same thing, so I don't feel so bad about donating this one, because it is a gorgeous edition. I think it's Fairy Loot. It's either Fairy Loot or Lumacrate. But yeah, unfortunately it just didn't do it for either of us, so that'll be going in the pile. The book I picked up before and said it was in a category all of its own is Children of Blood and Bone. Only because my sister has a copy. I did really enjoy this book. I just don't need my own copy when there's already one in the house. But I will be continuing with the series. I have the sequel. I think it's in the 2022 priority list somewhere. But yeah, as I mentioned at the start of this video, I am sorry if your favourite book is in this pile. Everybody's tastes are different, and we're not all going to like the same thing, which is perfectly fine. That's how discussions start. So if you want me to try a different book by one of the authors that's been mentioned, drop me a note in the comments, and I will chat to you there. So that's it for this video. Give it a like if you liked it, and hit that subscribe button if you want to see this and talk about these, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.